Be sure to go to becomewar.com and click on the War Chest. There you'll find access to our website, podcast, merchandise, and public Facebook group. And with the purchase of every program of Become War, you get exclusive access to our community Facebook group and what you need for that iron sharpening iron. Click on becomewar.com today and become war. I think after the 20th time is the charm. Become War. Here we are, becomewar.com podcast. We're in the war room today. Got Peter Meyerhoff with me. Chappy, dude, thanks for joining. Thanks for being on, even though it's taken us like 20 times to try to orchestrate this.
This is definitely meant to be today, but yeah, I'm excited. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. I stumbled across you a couple of weeks ago, saw your stuff, immediately was drawn in by your presence and your energy, the way that you wind up dealing and interviewing the guests that you do on your podcast. We're going to talk all about that today. Become War is where I want to bring people into the war room that are just the type of people that I want to surround myself by. You've heard that saying, what is it? You know, you are a product of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. I want just a legion of men and women that I could surround myself with that are just absolutely fantastic people. And I don't know you that well at all. We've had a couple of conversations, but I have a feeling that you are the quality of what I want. If you can, give a 360-degree view of who you are, and let's just have a conversation and go to war today.
Yeah, so I always tell people I'll give like a little crash course on my life and how I ended up screwing it up and fixing it and get to where we are today. But, you know, so my little backstory is that, you know, I had it all as a kid. I was in a movie at, I think 12 or 13. I had a modeling agent at 13. I was the top athlete, the most popular kid in school. You know, childhood was good. You know, like my parents split and divorced when I was like 10 or 11. I didn't think it'd affect me. I realize now it kind of did affect me a little bit, but it wasn't bad. You know, my dad was still around. My mom was always there, you know. They left and I went to high school and, you know, everything kind of changed. I went to high school. I didn't have supervision at home. My mom was a flight attendant and she was, you know, trying to support and raise 2 kids. And I got into hanging out with the senior kids in high school when I was a freshman. And, you know, that I used to look at it like it was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. And now it's honestly, it's kind of crazy to say it was a blessing, but it was once you come full circle and, you know, see where you are now. But I actually had a fake sexual assault happen when I was 15 years old in high school. And it was, and it happens so often to people, which is why I kind of finally chose to be outspoken about it. You know, I didn't tell people this for a long time. And a lot of people that knew the drug addict I turned into, they didn't know the reasoning behind it, you know? So we're, you know, freshmen in high school, me and my best friend, we're drinking and he asked me to literally take one for the team, you know? So hook up with this chick, Ashley, because he wanted to hook up with her friend. I was like, all right, whatever, fine, you know? And we, of course, used my house because my mom was a flight attendant, so she was gone that weekend. And we weren't even driving at the time. So the chick that he was hooking up with, Lindsay, her older brother had to sneak them, like you do when you're kids, sneak out the bedroom window. He supplied us. I remember it was a big bottle of Jack Daniels. And we were drinking that. And it was like, you know, when you're a kid and you drink Jack Daniels, you're like, dude, I cannot drink this stuff. But we end up pounding half the bottle. I lose my virginity that Friday night. So does my friend Brandon. We do the exact same thing Saturday night. He picks him up to sneak out. No joke, the exact same thing. We polish off the rest of the bottle of Jack Daniels. And then Sunday comes around. And I remember I went to call him just to see where we're going to hang out. And her friend was like really short with me. And she's like, well, I'm mad at you. And I was just like, I don't even know what she was talking about. I was like, oh, all right, whatever. And then she kind of brushed me off. And by the time I get home that day, my mom is on the phone. And within about 20 seconds, I hear my mom saying, there's no way my son raped your daughter. And I was like, what the hell happened? I like to tell my mom to hang up the phone. I was like, what the hell happened? Who are you talking to? She's like, that was Ashley's mother. And I was just like, how does she say I raped her? Like, we hooked up Friday and Saturday night, you know? And she was one of those girls, like, I could have hooked up with her 2 years ago if I wanted to, you know those girls in school. Like, I never did, never. I literally took them for the team for my buddy. But so I went from being the most popular kid in high school to being public enemy #1. That very next Monday, I had to go. So what makes the story even worse, she didn't want to press charges, refused to take a lie detector test, got a rape kit done on her, and they showed that she had had sex, but nothing was damaged, so nothing was forced. And of course, she didn't want to press charges, but she went around school telling everybody that I did this to her, right? So that Monday they came and, pulled me out of my class, and the cops and principals had gotten so many messages and stuff from teens, and they're saying that there was something bad was going to happen to me at school. So they give me a police escort, no joke, like march me off campus, and they're like, we don't know what to do, but you can't be here today. We've already gotten so many reports that something's going to happen to you. Like, this is for your safety. So I go from having it all to dropping out of school that day. And I knew everybody because I was popular. So I go from hanging out with all the athletes and stuff. All we did was played sports, and I smoked weed and drank alcohol like pretty much every high school kid does. I was not into drugs. I never even seen hard drugs before. And then I hanging out with the dudes that aren't in school, and these dudes do hard drugs. And I experimented with crystal meth, crack cocaine, ecstasy, all for the first time the same weekend. This is just like a normal weekend for these guys. And I'm just like, and I remember the crystal meth got put in my face, and he's like, oh, it's just a fun party drug. You're going to love it. And that's how crystal meth got presented to me. So I was, of course, what am I going to do? I try it. I don't have nothing to behave for. I'm mad at God for what happened to me. I'm an angry kid at this point, So what do? I numb the pain like everybody else does with drugs, So I go on to drugs for 15 till about 18 years old. End up getting into some bad stuff, stealing cars, robbing homes. I never carried guns, so nothing dangerous like that, but just doing dumb stuff. And then spring break, which should have been my senior year of high school, I actually went to prison for robbing the dude that was my best friend at that time. So the guy that was there with me, because here's my thing. If he just opens his mouth and says what happened, that everything goes away. He wouldn't open his mouth. He's like, I'm not getting involved in that, And I'm like, he was my best friend since elementary school, middle school, and then high school, So for him to turn his back on me like that. And then we're all drinking at my mom's house on spring break. And my brother and his friends come back, and they tell me they had just robbed the Nelson's house. And I was like, no way, where are they? And it's the biggest house where we're from. It's like 15,000 square feet with an indoor basketball court that says their last name across it. And they tell me, I'm like, no way. So me and my friends go back. And I took, no joke, a drill, a snowboard, some change, and some Jordan basketball shorts and Jordan sandals. My friends had taken all the jewelry. We run out. I, of course, I'm this tough kid now at this point. I'm not saying nothing to the police, this and that. And they're like, we're going to make an example out of you. I'm like, bring it. And they gave me 12 years in prison for a non-dangerous burglary charge at 18 years old. 10 kids were involved in this case. Only one other one got prison time. He got 2 years. And he got 3 more felonies than me because he was selling this jewelry that he had stolen directly to pawn shops in his own name. But of course, he told on me, told the cops that I did it, told them where the jewelry was. So he got 2 years and I got 12 years. So I went away at 18 years old for 12 years. And didn't get out of prison until a month after I turned 30 years old. So I had 0 of my 20s free, 18, 19, slam down. And I probably did 7, 8 years slam down in solitary confinement, maximum security. Like, you couldn't have done worse prison sentence than I did.
What are you doing now? What's the mission now? What's the purpose?
The mission now is to help people. I was so lucky. And what's crazy is I felt like I was like, God had shorted me, and I was always like, that's why I didn't believe in God. I was like, if God's real, why would he keep putting me through shit, and why would this happen to me and all this?
Romans 8:28.
Just like anybody who says, you don't give God praise and good things happen to you, but anything bad happens to you, you're like, F God, this, so I went, and I honestly just feel really blessed to made it out of there, and I went from feeling angry and short on life to feeling like the luckiest dude in the world that I made it out of there, and then I realized like how quick, like, they don't have nothing set up for dudes that do prison time. When you get out, it's like, they're literally like, have your luck at it. Good luck with you. You know what I'm saying? We'll see you when you come back. The COs even tell you that. Like, when they're like, I was like, I'm going home in 3 months. Like, I'll see you when you come back. They're like, I was like, I'm going home in February. They're like, when are you going to come back? By summertime? That's what the COs are literally telling me. Because I think the recidivism rate is 83 or 87%. Almost 9 out of 10 dudes that go to prison come back, especially dudes that did a bunch of prison time like me around hard ass criminals and run a bunch of straight murderers. So I made it a mission, dude. I just want to help people, and I want people to, instead of being scared of getting out on the streets and thinking that we have no chance of the world, dude, we have an advantage on the rest of the world, saying, because like when people had their backs against the wall and they can handle adversity and stuff, you have an advantage on the rest of the world. Because one thing is, like, people out here, and I always say this now, like, citizens that have never been through something, they're a bunch of pussies out here. You know what I'm saying? Like, they run for the small sign of adversity, and they're like, just like Andy Frisella says, they'll sell their dreams in 2 seconds if something doesn't go their way. You know what I'm saying? And I don't do that, So I learned real quick that, like, I taught myself mental strength, and now, like, I launched the big podcast. I literally just want to inspire and motivate people from prison all across the country that no matter what you did or how much prison time you did or how covered in tattoos you are, like, we can literally accomplish anything we want to as long as we change our mindset.
That's what's impressed me the most about you, to have you on a podcast, because you and I couldn't be more different. I didn't have sex till I was 22. Didn't touch a fucking drug, unless you want to call steroids a drug, till I was 40. Never smoked anything. I was just a fucking, I straight laced. I was always afraid of getting in trouble. Not that much of a risk taker. I became a cop, all this. And then,
thanks for the service, by the way.
Thanks for letting me serve, but it's not all it's cracked up to be. But my point is we bow in two polarizing directions. And then here we are both on the same mission to serve. That's what impresses the living shit out of me, to show I am not an excuse-driven person where you have people, I can't do this, I can't do that. You had 12 years taken from you, and they're the development years. Those are the impression years, the years where God only knows what the fuck happened to you in prison, to where you come out now, your energy is addicting. It's infectious. It's fantastic. I want to know about the mindset, because it's not easy. You know, if I went the opposite direction than you did, and, you know, I took a career, I didn't go to college, but I didn't do all that. I did the opposite of you. I try not to bitch and complain, but I can. You have every right to bitch and complain. You have every fucking right to moan, complain. Why don't you? And what was your mindset to prevent yourself from doing that?
I'll tell you why. Because, it's real simple. Like, it doesn't get you anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can bitch and complain and feel like resented or shorted, and it literally does nothing. And what I realized, I was going to end up killing myself. You know, like, you just have to man up and just like get over stuff. Like, bad stuff happens to good people all the time. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how the world works. You know what I mean? And I used to have to put myself in different circumstances. So like, I would have to like look at someone else that had it worse than me, just to be like, okay, my life isn't that bad or something. You know, like, I just shared about this the other day for the first time. Everybody was like, I compared my life. I remember one time I got thrown in the hole for another investigation, and I was back there with like no books, no blanket, nothing, just freezing in the cell. And like, literally, if I could have killed myself that time, I would have, you know. And I remember I had this one book that they had given me. It was like I want to say it was the Casey Dugard or JC Dugard story. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it was a little girl that had got kidnapped when she was like 7 years old or something on California. And then that rapist held her for like 15 years or something, right? Like, she delivered 2 babies for him. I'm sure you know about the story now that you've heard it. So I was in this hole reading this book, and I remember this like it was yesterday, dude. It was like, but life's all about perspective. So like, as I go into that cell, I'm thinking, no one has it worse than me. I'm going to kill myself. I'm claustrophobic. Like, literally, those are things that are going through my mind. Then I'm having a panic attack, you know? And then I read this book, and then I like read this little girl that was like, had her hands tied behind her back, like at 7 years old. And then he had this little shed in the back, and that's where he kidnapped her, and he would leave her tied up with her hands tied behind her back. People don't know this, but you don't know how bad it is being handcuffed or having your hands tied behind your back. Like, within 2 minutes, you have the worst shoulder pain ever, but people don't feel that out here because they've never been handcuffed before, which is, I don't suggest being handcuffed. So like, I can feel that, you know? So I'm reading this book, and not only do I read it, but like, I can feel that. I'm like, God, imagine the shoulder pain that she's in, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm like this, and this is a 7-year-old girl, you know what I mean? That did nothing wrong in the world. And if she's not bitching and complaining about what's happening to her, and God only knows what's really happening to her, it's not fair for me to sit here and bitch about something that I did to myself. Does that make sense? Like, granted, I got a way worse prison sentence than I should have got. I put myself in prison. If I don't burglarize that house, I don't have nothing to worry about what kind of sentence the judge gives me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a firm believer. Like, you just deal with stuff as it comes through to you. And I screwed up, so I can't. That's why I've never been one to bitch about my circumstance, you know. And if I did, I would have never made it anywhere. Like, the first year out here, that's how I was. I felt resentful. I felt like the world owed me something. Nobody was giving me anything, you know. And I'm coming out of prison, this big prison shock collar, like running everything, and I come out here and like, you get no respect, and that doesn't pay you any money. I have no money. I feel broke, and I'm depressed, you know. But it's like, I kept making excuses on why I couldn't do anything, and then it's like, I literally even had to talk to my dad, and I'm just like, dude, I got to snap out of this, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is going nowhere, bitching and complaining about how I can't get a job, and I had an overdose out here, and that's literally what saved my life, you know. You want me to talk about that?
I want to talk about what defines you, because a lot of people don't get that. Like, I'm not a fan of the Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to compare myself to a buddy of mine who was a 15-year sober alcoholic, and he used to say all the time, you know, I haven't had a drink in 15 years. I'm sober, right? But I'm an alcoholic. And I used to say, man, that kind of matched up to me, because, you know, I'm a womanizer then, right? And I haven't fucked around that bad in 10 years or so, but man, that means that if I cheated and womanized 15 years ago, I still am. And then I started to think about the fact that one of the things I don't like about AA is every time you voice that, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic, and you haven't done it in 15 years, you are programming yourself to a repeated statement of what you are. I don't think that Chappy is a criminal. I don't. I think that Chappy is this kid who was put in a circumstance to whatever you want to do. Align with people, try to find his way. You talked about God. I'm a big fan of Romans 8:28, which is, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. That means that those 12 years, that was your purpose to now come out here and do it. I don't think you're a criminal because I do know the criminal element. I'm going to tell you, people don't change. They don't fucking change. If somebody, if that's who they are, then you're going to go. If you are a criminal, you would have been back in prison by now. Would have happened by now. So I think that honestly, it's like Job. It's like everything else. You're a modern day example of what God puts somebody through to say, all right, I'm going to fucking test the shit out of you now. And you're going to come out forged on the other end. Do you ever think about that? Or do you in your mind, are you a guy who you were a prisoner and you were a criminal, all that? Because I don't see you as that. That's the fire you went through for baptism.
I firmly believe that. And that's like I said, when it all makes sense, I felt like I was like short on life. And now that I have God in my life for one, two, it's like, I believe firmly what you said. Like God put me in there and gave me 12 years for a burglary charge and put me in solitary so many times and put me in max and super max. No joke. I think for a few things. To one, just to torture the absolute shit out of me, but to also know that like, no matter how bad I get tortured, I can always come through on the other side of it. And two is that like, he put me through that because I'm a tough dude, you know what I'm saying? And I'm tough enough to go through that shit and then come out here and show people that like, there's people out here that are dealing with not even a tenth of what I dealt with and they literally want to give up and kill themselves. You know what I'm saying? So then when I'm working with dudes in recovery, I'm telling them that and I'm like, dude, I did. And I only have to give them a small portion of my story. You know what I'm saying? Like I could give them a tenth of my story. I'm like, dude, you don't got it that bad anymore, do you? No. All right, then let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like God put me through that because I'm strong and he literally did it solely so I could show other people how to navigate through situations that trouble them. You know what I'm saying? I firmly believe that. I'm like one of his messengers, bro. And I'm like, you go from feeling shorted to feeling like you can't miss and like you have like the whole world in the palm of your hands again.
Where's the compassion at in your heart to where perception's reality? You're going to deal with somebody who didn't go through what you went through. And no matter what they listen to your story, still they could go through something that was a fraction of what you went through and it's going to be devastating to them. You can't save everybody. How do you function with, you're on a mission. You want to save people. You know, it's not going to happen all the time. You know, you're going to go through heartbreak. How do you balance? Because I could picture you being just somebody who is completely empathetic, go, all right, God, you put me through these 12 years. I come out, I'm trying to save people. I can't save people. I picture, you can't save everyone. I can picture that when those who can't be saved, aren't be saved, that it affects you bad. How do you, how do you deal with that?
I got goosebumps and I'm crying already. Like, I lost a friend last week. And just to show how cool it is and how cool these podcasts are. And like, they're like, when you're like, for helping people, this dude didn't even know me. He was from Louisiana, had watched my Vice TV show on Hulu, and then randomly DM me. We talked on the phone. He flew out here. He'd done some prison time and just like said, I inspired him. So he literally came out and flew out just to sit in my studio and watch the podcast of mine. We stayed in touch. He had a year sober and he was just going to come out and see me last weekend, and he relapsed and died, and dude, some hurts. It's hard to explain, but some just hurt you worse than others. You know what I mean? Like me and that dude weren't even that close, but like the second you get on the phone with the dude, I was like, dude, we're the same dude. You know what I mean? I literally had this talk with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can do this, we can do anything. Like, don't fall into that shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's not what the CEOs and all that shit preach. You know what I'm saying? Look what I did, and you can do the exact same thing as me. Like, we're the same dude. It's like, and dude, I was crying for like 2 days straight off this one, and it's because he has a 3-year-old little girl. And he has no mom and dad, and it's just like, and I even prayed that night to God. I was like, make this easier. Like, why? Like, I can't go through this because it's true. You can't save everybody. And like, she was like, tell me, you can't save everybody. I'm like, that doesn't make it any easier for me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a relationship with the dude. I would FaceTime and see his little girl. You know what I mean? And I was looking at pictures and I'm just like, dude, that dude's gone. And it's like, that's how serious drugs are nowadays. It's not like back in the days where you can relapse, go do a pill or something like that, and the next day you're fine. Like, fentanyl's everywhere. Like, people relapse and die now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's literally what happened to me. And I firmly believe that. I almost feel like I should tell the story now just because it's what we're on, but God saved my life for this reason. So I'm going to tell you my overdose story. When I got out of prison, I never drank at a bar. I had never had a job. I had never seen a flat screen TV. Like, I went to prison with the old Nokia phones with Snake on them. And I get out and we got iPhones and big flat screen TVs on walls and shit. Like, I almost passed out when I went to my brother's house and saw his big ass TV on the wall when I had first gotten out, So I want to go date and pull chicks like everybody. Like, I saw my friends doing those whole time I was in there, So I'm going to bars and doing that. And I knew I knew I have like somewhat of I have an addictive mindset, put it that way, right? I had never drank like that. I didn't know if drinking was a problem to me. And I didn't think I was an alcoholic because I never drank by myself, never drank at home. I like to go out and party and have fun. We're drinking one day. It was a Friday afternoon. It was a buddy's birthday party, and literally, I remember this like it was yesterday. The last thing I do is a shot of Rumplemans. It was in the afternoon time, and I'm a year out of prison on parole. Next thing you know, I wake up in an ambulance, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" You know, I'm like, I literally tell the paramedic, "What the fuck am I doing in here?" And he's like, "You overdosed." And I was like, "I don't even use drugs anymore." He's like, "Well, you did today," and I'm like, what the fuck could have possibly happened to me, you know? But it's all, and here's mindset and how big mindset is to me. So like the whole rest of the ride to the hospital, I'm kind of in and out of consciousness, and I'm like thinking, to be honest, I'm mad that I survived. You know what I'm saying? I was like, God, why couldn't that just have been over with? You know what I'm saying? And just all this pain and suffering was just over. Because like I felt like my whole life I was just fighting and clawing for nothing, and my whole life sucked. You know what I'm saying? And I just wish I could have ended it. But the only reason I couldn't end it was because of my mom. You know, like if my mom wasn't around, I would have killed myself a long time ago in prison. You know, but I never did, just because she would have never got over that. You know, and it's just a selfish thing to do. I firmly believe that. So I get there and I'm in the hospital, and then all of a sudden I hear my brother in the hallway. And my little brother's on the phone with my dad, who's my dad's Mr. AA, you know, and of course his 30-year-old prison shot calls getting out of prison now. And I'm like, why the fuck are you calling dad? You know? And he's like, do you even know what happened? You almost died. I'm like, I have no idea what happened. They told me I overdosed. I don't even remember what happened. We were at the bar drinking. I don't know anything. By the time the doctor came in, he told me that my heart was only beating 6 beats a minute by the time they got me to the hospital. I'm the only person who could survive in that condition that he's seen. Coming full circle, when they found me, it was an ex-girlfriend's little sister that found me. And this is where the God comes in, right? And it's so crazy how all this happened. And then, so I go from like, I told you, mad that I survived and all this stuff. And then I find out what happened. And she went to go tanning after work. She pulled up to the tanning bed still in place. She parked her car. She got out of her car and said she even walked up to the door. She said she got all the way up to the tanning bed still on the door. And she said right when she put her hand on the door handle, something told her to go home. So she takes her hand off the handle and goes home to take a nap. She's the one that finds me. When she finds me, I'm already have no heartbeat. I'm purple, just drenched in sweat. She said I was like upside down in the bathtub because clearly what we'd done is a shot of dope, and I just probably fell out like that. The cool prison dudes, of course, what does he do? He steals all my money out of my wallet and leaves, doesn't even call the paramedics for me. And so I found out that I got found, and I'm like thinking a couple things in my head. One is, why the fuck would that have happened? You know, like something told her to go back to that. It just was crazy to me. And two, then I started having survivor's remorse. So I was like thinking, like, why would I survive through that and all these good people don't? You know, like you could use that little rape girlfriend example. Like what? Like, why does stuff happen to these people and they don't survive through? You know, I lost a cousin who was an all-American athlete for the Olympics, and it's like, she's not here. Like, I don't, and I almost feel like I didn't deserve to live through that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't deserve to, and I didn't want to. And then a light goes off in my head. I was like, damn, God saved my life today for that shit, you know? And but it's all about mindset. So then like right there, I go from laying in that hospital bed to thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life now. You know what I'm saying? I'm on parole, just overdose. Who knows if I'm going back to prison until like thinking, all right, I'm going to figure this shit out now. You know what I'm saying? I'm done drinking. I'm going to like finally give it a chance. I'm done using the victim excuses. I'm done using my tattoos as an excuse why I can't get a job. And I'm like literally going to just not make an excuse on anything in my life and actually give it a fucking 110% shot. And I got sober right then, went and sold cars. And I would say like, it's so crazy how quick my life switched. You know, I went from being just a drug addict, ex-con, never had a job in my life. I made 10 grand my first month working, 109 grand my first year ever, 200 grand my second year, then 300 grand. I'm a finance manager, have my own office, keys to one of the biggest car dealerships in Scottsdale. I'm one of only 3 dudes that are allowed to touch a safe in cash. And that all happened within like a 2-year span. I went from never even having a job in my life to being a finance manager within 13 months. I got promoted 4 times in a row. And you know why? Because I've had my back against the wall before, and I've sat there and just wasted time looking at what's going on in the world and not being able to do anything. I looked at that dealership like it was my prison yard. You know what I'm saying? Like, and no one's holding me back. You know what I'm saying? I can do anything I want all day long now. So why not go make more money and go help this dude? And like, when you have more gratitude for stuff in life, gratitude and perspective are the 2 biggest rules in life for me, right? So you have sales guys that are there and they ever want to, I don't know if you've ever been in sales, you know how sales is like, you have dudes that are trying to hack each other on car deals. Everyone's trying to be grimy and all this and that, you know? And it's like, the reason I got promoted 4 times in a row and I made it and flew past everybody, even the top 20 car sales guys, when I was there, like I got promoted past all of them and 3 more times in a row. It was because when there was a little thing that needed to be done and someone needed like a temporary plate put on a car to handle a phone call or take a car and you could technically half a salesperson, I did everything and didn't half anybody. You know why? Because like my whole life's played with house money now. I shouldn't be sitting here today. I should have been dead 10 times in a row. So I look at it like that. Now that I can do anything and I have this mindset that I know I can do anything I want, once the light goes off and you tell yourself you can do anything, you literally can't do anything. If you tell yourself you can't do anything and your life sucks, you're not going to be able to do anything. Confidence is a number one rule why I'm where I am today. And it's all because God saved my life. And then I got confidence. I started making money and I realized money ain't everything. Money makes it easier to help people. Money gives you freedom to do cool things. You know what I'm saying? And then I started making 350 there probably, and was like, bought the cars, a nice house and everything. And I was like, I need more out of life, and I'm like, I remember sitting there, I was like, this is not meant for me. I know damn well I'm meant to do way more than sitting in this damn office right now. And so crazy, God just pulled me out of the man within like a 2-day span. I called my GM in my office. A big car dealership, the finance manager, that's the job for everybody to have. Like, when you start selling cars, everybody wants to be in finance. I was a top finance dude that ran the best numbers every month, make my own schedule. I even had a 3-day weekend every month. And everybody was just like, and I remember telling those finance people, I was like, but I had no clue how life worked. You know what I mean? This is the only job I'd ever worked. And I remember telling them, I was like, you guys are going to do this forever? And they're like, I don't know. What do you mean? Why? And I'm like, I don't know. I just can't see doing this forever. They're like, where else are you going to make this money? I'm like, I don't know, but like, I don't know what it is, but I know I can't do this forever, And within a 2-day span, I had a 3-day weekend, and I didn't want the 3-day weekend to go over, and I go back into work that day, and I was like, dude, I'm gonna quit my job. I'm not doing this anymore. And I called my GM in there, who's the only guy that would ever hire me, and he's the only dude that took a chance on me, And I called him in there, and I was like, I don't even know where to go or how to say this, dude, but I was like, I'm out. He's like, what do you mean you're out? I was like, dude, I can't work here anymore. He's like, what do you mean? What happened? I was like, I don't even know how to explain it other than I'm crying, literally. And I'm like, all I know is that I just was meant to do more than this, man. And I cannot sit in this office anymore. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want to go chase my dreams. I had some money saved up, and I told him, I just want to go help people, And I had blown off a dude the last weekend over just dude, a lot of dudes get out of prison and blow me up now. They want me to help them, mentor them, and it's like, it's a lot, So like, I couldn't work 60 hours a week in the car biz and then answer these phone calls from these guys. And I'm losing so many dudes from fentanyl left and right now. It's like, I just felt selfish staying there. I was like, it's selfish for me to sit in this office and keep my story to myself, making $350,000 a year. So I decided to leave and go figure out whatever. I said for the last year, God was going to write my paychecks for me, and I was just going to go take a shot and try to just talk to everybody I possibly could. And, I quit my job a year and a half ago with, I think, 400 followers on Instagram. I didn't even believe in Instagram. I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. Didn't even have a clue I was going to do a podcast. And that's what God does. And I'm a master now of getting myself in the room and just figuring shit out. I'm a pro now at being the dumbest dude in every room I go in now. Like you talked about, like, your circle is who you are, dude. There's not a rule that's more true to me than that to this day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I roll around with dudes that, like, sometimes I'm not joking. I'm in a room and I'm listening to these conversations and I'm like, for one, it's almost, they might as well be speaking another language because if these dudes are so smart. And two, it's like, how the hell did I get here? And then it's like, I got it because I put myself out there. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like Ed Miley and Andy Frisell say, you get yourself in the room and figure this shit out afterwards, because the greatest thing about this, dude, I got a phone book now and I can probably call just about anybody in the world to get the answer that I don't know myself because I'm an 8th grade dropout. You know what I'm saying? And once you realize that, you have the key to the earth.
I want to talk about you as far as I want to dig deep. You're a shark, right? And sharks don't stop swimming. End of story. This is going to be somebody may understand this one. Anytime I'm talking to another man that's an alpha, my brain goes. I listen to how you talk, see your mannerisms, and the first place my mind goes is all the way to the basic common denominators of how would I fight this guy. You're somebody who's erratic. You're somebody who'd be difficult to fucking fight, right? Because you move and you move and you move. And it's a compliment. But there's times when you stop. I don't believe that we are defined by the thing that we put our most efforts into. It could be a drug. It could be robbing houses. It could be podcasting. It could be helping people. But the point is you do something to put that energy in. That's all that you're doing. But you can't run a marathon full speed, right? And the marathon eventually ends. What is Chappy's downtime like? Does it bother you? Do you sit there when the noise is off and the phone doesn't ring and maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 3 hours? Are you comfortable with being who you are in that moment? Because you clearly are somebody who needs to help others. That is your gift. How is it when you have to recharge your batteries and you're like, okay, it's just me? Can you exist? Can you be with yourself? And how does it affect you?
Wow, that is a really, really good, deep question, man.
Yeah, when I have people on, I want people to know who they fucking are. And there's so much more to you than just than somebody who helps people. You are a very unique individual. People need to know who you are.
Well, that's crazy. I appreciate that comment, but I was trying to like think back while you're asking me the question, and I'm not good in downtime. That's one of the right now. I just kind of slow down because I take on so many projects and I literally just want to help everybody. I want to do so much for everybody. But like my girl tells me, like, you don't have 8 arms, and 48 hours in a day, and I'm like, I just don't have an off button though, and I told her like when I get settled to where I am and I'm in the house I'm living in and our kids in school and everything's going, then I'll turn the button off, and hopefully just be helping people nonstop every day with the podcast. But it's like it is kind of tough. I'm good at sitting in silence. I'm just not good at not doing anything because like, and it's a prison thing. Like I've wasted so much of my life. Like I do have a problem just sitting around and watching TV, like it's so crazy. I was a diehard sports fan. I haven't even sat and watched a Super Bowl or a full basketball game since I've been out of prison, because like, but when you've lost everything and you've lost all your freedom and you realize like that, I sat years and years where I couldn't walk past 3 feet, like more than 3 feet in my cell. I look at all that stuff like it's a waste of time now. TV, all that stuff. I'm not a big TV guy. I literally solely want to help people. And if not, I'm literally just like on my phone, Googling stuff, trying to learn stuff. And the reason I'm working on it right now is because my fiance is not a big fan of me being on my phone all day and night long. And, I'm I'm like, I know I built this whole network all by myself, all word of mouth. I've never run an ad for anything. It's just from getting out there and talking to people, like and I've been that way since I was a kid. I'm really good at talking to people. So like you were at the grocery store on last Sunday and I'm like, in the produce section, talking to the couple older ladies and this other dude, and I'm like showing them my podcast, and I like look over and Jasmine's like literally rolling her eyes at me. I was like, "What's going on?" She's like, "Sunday night even at the grocery store?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" She's like, "You don't have an off button?" She's like, "Can we just like get groceries and not work for one day?" And I'm like, "I don't really have an off button. No, I don't. Like that comes natural to me. You know what I'm saying? And like I didn't get to do this forever." And I'm like, and on top of that, I was like, "What if that lady had a struggling son at home and she needed to hear what I was going to tell her right then?" You know what I'm saying? I just feel like it's selfish for me now to keep my mouth closed and not do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense to you?
I think one of the biggest gifts you have that is something that not a lot of people have. When I started listening to a couple of your podcasts, we're in a day and age where everybody thinks they can put a podcast out, right? And they don't realize how difficult it is to constantly come up with material, this and that. And yes, it's
how much money it is,
right? It's an overused word, narcissism. But it's become we're in a narcissistic culture to where. Look, I'm on social media. I'm doing all this. The thing that caught me the most with your podcast is I listened to your interview style. Unlike most of the people out there, you listen to the person. You don't listen to respond. And I caught that. I'm like, holy shit, this guy gets it. When you interview people, you are actually in that. You're present. You are present with the person you're talking to. I was so impressed by that. What I thought is, dude, so many people are like, they're trying to one up on each other's podcasts, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You don't do that. Even for somebody who's who has the gift of gab, you have the gift of presence, all this, but you show such compassion to the people you're interacting with. Again, I want to get into the mindset of how do you focus and how do you fill the well to give others something to drink from if you are constantly pouring into others? What gives Chappy that fuel to go back into saying, all right, tomorrow I got this person, this person, this person, and I don't doubt for 1 second, if on your podcast for entertainment purposes, you're actually in the moment with that person and you show them such respect, then you're doing that for the one-on-one. How do you constantly get in order to give?
Dude, and I don't mean to repeat the same thing. This is God's mission. You know what I'm saying? Like God saved my life to do this. And it's like, and I know that as long as I keep putting other people first, like I'm going to be blessed on the backside of it, So like this could help a lot of people. I look at like little stints in life, like little boot camps, right? Because it's easier to say, like, even like my prison sentence, if I would have done if I could have broken down like little, 2-year boot camp over here in Florence and then 2 years in Buckeye and 2 years here, it's different. So like, I look at that like right now, I'm in boot camp. I'm in grind mode. You know what I'm saying? And like once I finish this boot camp, I'm going to be blessed on the backside of it. But as long as I keep putting other people first, and when somebody needs something, I'm there for them, and I don't shine people off no matter how big I get or whatever. It's like, and what keeps me going is every day, at least a few times a day, I get a random email, a DM, or something from a loved one that's in prison that my podcast is literally saving their life right now. And it's no joke, like literally saving lives. Like I just read one yesterday, and the dude, it was like, dude, and it's crazy. I get these and I cry with you. So it's like that refills my bowl right there. You know what I'm saying? Like if I can like literally cry, know that I'm not only like helping, inspiring people to like make livings and do good stuff. But like, I'm literally taking people from the guy that wrote me this email yesterday was like on the verge of suicide. And he said somehow he saw the roll call with Chappy thing that popped up in his thing. So he listened to that and literally went from like contemplating killing himself. He said he like really thought out how to kill himself, listened to my podcast, and then wants to take over the world, lost 60 pounds, did 75 hard. And it's like, dude, we're not only like helping people, because that's what I want to do is like inspire people just so like they can make a living out here. Like we're literally, not to sound cliche, but like saving lives now. You know what I'm saying? So that's what keeps me going. It's like it's life and death, and that's what keeps me sober as well too. Like if I want to go relapse again or have another crack at it, I firmly believe that I'm going to be one of those fentanyl dudes and I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? Like I was on the verge of the verge of the verge. I was on deathbed. I was dead. I had no heartbeat. I'm real stubborn and hard-headed, and that's why I always say this now. Like that's what it took for me to figure out, like, finally, okay, my back's against the wall. Like that was my absolute rock bottom. And I'm such a hardhead dude. Like I had to have no heartbeat to find out my rock bottom. You know what I'm saying?
Have you discovered boundaries yet? Have you discovered the place where you're in such a compassionate point to where you are trying to help everybody, that there are going to be some people who try to just completely take all your time, all this, and then get upset when you can't answer their email? Have you discovered boundaries, and are you good at them? Because to be honest,
I'm just not working on, because I just told Jasmine this yesterday. I was like, I need to figure out something, because I need an assistant to answer all these too. Because like my podcast in 250 prisons across the whole country and tons of county jails, and every county jail in Arizona. And I know how it is for inmates, you know, they get in there, they see it's like, oh my God, and they have nothing to do all day long. So they're like, and then I get these kids' moms that are hitting up, you know, like, here, set this thing up and message my son. I'm like, so I'm trying, I had this conversation just yesterday. I was like, ma'am, I'm not trying to be rude, but like, I don't have time to set up this thing and text and email your son back. Like, she's like, you're really helping him. You're inspiring him. I'm like, that's great. But I'm like, not to be rude, but like, do you know how many people do this to me every single day? I'm like, I wouldn't have time to keep doing my podcast, so I answer all these emails and stuff like that. I'm like, when he gets out, if he wants to hit me up when he's out of prison, 100%, I'm right here. And you can literally, I answer my own Instagram and stuff, but it's like, I'm learning how to set boundaries there. And I want to do it the most professional way on top of that too. But it's like, even with the podcast now, dude, my podcast is, I've been getting people almost every day hitting me up from all over the country to come and do on my show, you know? And I'm like, but here's the deal. I'm learning all this on the fly. There's no textbook on how to get to where I get from where I came from. You know what I'm saying? And I learned that. But one thing I do know is like I said, the phone, you have tools to learn anything. I'm learning on the fly. The worst thing I can do, as long as I'm not dishonest and I don't use drugs, like nothing bad's going to happen to me. You know what I'm saying? Like you can always figure stuff out. Like those are the two rules. Like don't use drugs and don't lie to people. Just be a good person. You know what I'm saying? And everything else is going to figure itself out.
What's your frame of mind moving forward? Or are you in a state of guilt, or do you reward yourself, or do you allow yourself to have, happiness and pleasure, or do you beat yourself up from, what you went through? Where are you at?
I did my suffering and stuff now. Like this is here's how I look at it. If I'm not helping somebody, this is celebration time. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, my whole life's houseman. I shouldn't have anything. I shouldn't be in this damn studio right here. I should have been dead a few times. So like, as long as there's nothing going on with me, like personally helping somebody, that's why I tell me it's been kind of crazy. You know, it's like I was telling my fiance, dude, lately I've just been wanting to celebrate life. You know what I mean? Like life is so good, man. When you like actually slow down and like get the whole gist of things, when you get figured out, when you realize what your true purpose in life is, you know, because like I thought that was my purpose. I was making, more than a lot of doctors and lawyers making that thing. But I was just empty, and you can't explain to someone unless they made money like that, or unless they've like literally felt empty and just in a place. But I was just like, dude, when you finally get your passion in life, though, when you like have your calling and know what it is, like I'm celebrating life right now. And if I can choose to live like this from how low I came from, anybody else in the world can, as long as they switch their mindset. Anybody can rewire your brain. I'm a firm believer in that. I've had to rewire my brain 3 completely different times. And if you rewire your brain and you give yourself confidence in those little self-talks, because they don't realize this, you're having 20,000 conversations in your head all day long. I had probably 100 on the way here, I'm like, and I'm at a point now, this goes back to your earlier question, where I'm at such peace in life. I can ride in my car and not even listen to music and just be joyful, and I've never in my life done that. I was always the guy that like, and that's why I feel like it's almost like drugs, like you're numbing things, because like those are like, that's when you like, when you're by yourself is when you really feel like, when you understand who you are and what's going on, So like when you're in your car, I like to use this example. Like I would always bump music and not think about anything. So like all I'm in is tuned to the music and the radio. And then you get to where you're going. You've had no mindset. You don't even think about what you're doing or prejudge anything. Where now instead it's like, dude, I'm at such peace. Like I'm like thinking about everything and thinking about this podcast and visualizing. And it's like, and on top of that, I'm like bumping on my gratitude, because I'm like, when you really think about my life, it's almost a joke that I am where I am today. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I owe it to the rest of the world and to God to show these dudes what's up. You know what I'm saying? Like, anybody can look at my story and they think they got it bad or whatever. They think that they're a drug addict. They don't know how to handle their stuff, or they think they're stuck in some career. Because I can't tell you the people when I was doing finance, I saw the people making 40, 50 grand a year in their mid 30s and think that they're stuck in their job. And I'm like, dude, you're not stuck unless you say you're stuck. I didn't even work my first job until I was 31 years old. Like, if you're 35 years old and you're miserable in your freaking job and you're not making any money, go get a new job. Literally. People are so stuck in this mindset that they think they can't do shit out here, and they don't realize you have every fucking obstacle. Like, you have every, I'm not obstacle. You have every tool that you can use out here in the world that you want. Literally anything. If you don't like what you're doing in your career, go get a new career. Like, literally tomorrow. The definition of insane, I say this all the time, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But these dudes will sit here and just be miserable, hate their job, hate their wives, and continue to do the same thing every single day. And they'll do it for a decade straight. And then by the time they're in their 50s, they're just the most miserable, grumpy dude in the world. When instead of like, now you can make a change tomorrow. You know, like, I think this really helps people to see that, like, if I didn't have a clue what I was doing until I was in my 30s, and look, like, I'm 38 years old right now, like, go get it, bro. Like, do you know how much easier it'd be for you to get to where I am if you started today rather than where I started from?
Well, you have,
I'm just showing
you have a fantastic position of gratitude for a base of reference that a lot of us don't know. On the flip side of what you went through, I do know firsthand the shitty nature of law enforcement. I do know how, when I was a cop, I didn't understand the saying, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, until I left law enforcement and went, oh my God, holy shit. Do you deal with, or are you looking to deal with, kind of working with law enforcement to let them know, hey, the guy that you're dealing with who is doing this or whatever, he's not subhuman, he's not a piece of shit, he's a person who actually needs X, Y, and Z, because they don't train that in law enforcement. No matter how much community policing they talk about, I can't tell you how many cops I saw that we would talk to people like they're below us and all this shit, and I can only imagine what it's like being locked up with COs. But is that something that's on your radar, or have you been doing that, working with law enforcement?
Both, yes, and yes. And I'm a huge, I rock a guy like me rocks the back the blue bracelet every day too, you know? And because here's the deal, when you realize, like, the cops didn't put me in prison, I put myself in prison. You know what I'm saying? The cops didn't give me 12 years. I robbed a house and I put it in a judge's hand to give me 12 years in prison. So every time I see a cop, I go up to him and shake his hand, give him some dap. Like, if I'm in line with him, I buy his lunch or whatever the case may be, you know, like, I'm really trying to bridge the gap right there between supposed ex-convicts and cops, because most of these ex-convicts are just drug addicts and they're good people. And that's why, like, me and Sheriff Lamb are so big, you know. And then Sheriff Lamb was one of the first guests I had on my podcast, and I started speaking to inmates in his jail because, like, here's the deal. If you can be an ex-shot call, and I ran pretty much the entire state of Arizona for the white boys in here. And then when I can get out and become a multimillionaire and then tell you that, like, I rock a back the blue bracelet, I'm friends with a bunch of cops, and the cops aren't the fucking problem. The problem is our own mindset. You know what I mean? So, like, and now so that we're just starting this training thing where I'm going to start speaking to all the cops out here on, one, how to handle dudes like I used to be, how the gang language is and all that stuff, because I want to bridge the gap right there. And if we can bridge the gap, it's literally it's going to not send as many people to prison. It's going to give the cops a better understanding of what they're dealing with. But on top of that, it's going to make my mom safe when she's at home. You know what I'm saying? It makes my mom safer from drug addicts going and burglarizing her house and stuff like that, and doing armed robberies. So, like, bridging that gap right there between ex-cons and law enforcement is a huge thing. It's like number one on my radar, and we are actually in the process where I'm going to start actually training a lot of the law enforcement officers out here.
That needs to be done, because I said it for 1,000,001 times. I got lucky. I came from the bartending industry. So when it came to being law enforcement,
you've done a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, somebody called. I had a friend of mine, Scott Sieverts, called me a Renaissance man, and I had to look that up. And I'm like, oh my God, I guess I am.
I am.
But that's exactly how I wound up being a great cop. Was I had customer service background, and I said, you want better cops in the streets? You need more salesmen and women, bartenders, waiters, retail people, because we do have, when you get that badge, holy shit, do you think you're invincible? And then all of a sudden, you think that person who's doing drugs that you arrested or whatever, you do. It's like, I do recall being, at the Dunkin' Donuts or the gas station getting coffee, and somebody who you arrested comes and says, hey, Officer so-and-so, it's great to see you. And you're just like, yeah, uh-huh. So I'm kind of cringing when you say you go up to cops, you buy their lunch, because I have to wonder how many of them are like, they don't understand the purpose of what you're doing it for, and they almost see it as if you're kissing the ring. And I can't stand that shit. But I'm hoping that you can get it through to law enforcement who drastically needs to see that people, we're not at war with the civilians. We're you're at war with what's going on. But man, there's a big problem with that, and I'm glad you're tackling that. Let's stretch out 5 years. What's your 5-year plan on taking on everything that's It's really, it's an endless task, from border crisis, fentanyl coming in, law enforcement, your politicians, recidivism, drug overdoses. Your plate is so full. It's insane. What's your 5-year goal?
The work will never stop that I can do on it, which is great. So like I got my book comes out next month. It's called Against All Odds. And by that time, I honestly, I told Andy Frisella this, I'm like, I think I'll have one of the biggest podcasts in the world. And I honestly want to, I love helping everybody, but inmates it's just like they got a special place in my heart. You know what I'm saying? And because all those guys, you can look at like a second chance life. Most of those guys all think their life's over and their life sucks. And like when you can actually really ignite those dudes and see how talented and special some of them are once they can just get off the drugs. Like, so by then I want to be a traveling speaker. I just want to speak at prisons across the whole country and just motivate people. And I want to have one of the biggest books around. And I just, like I said, I want my entire life just to be a big inspiration for people. And I just want to be a traveling motivational speaker and just literally help the world for the rest of my life. Because you know what's going on in the world. We're never going to be running short on stuff to do with drugs and fentanyl. And I just read that article that San Jose police chief was. Do you see that where she was importing fentanyl?
Oh dear God!
Right?
No.
She looks like Martha Stewart. 60-something years old, important fentanyl, So like, here's the deal: when we got cops doing that shit, like my job is I'm never gonna.
She should be executed.
Oh my gosh, for sure, yeah. Or she should be put on one of the yards I was at, But we would have done it ourselves. But
let's talk about the common everyday man and woman who. What is your suggestion for how we can interact with people who they need our backing, they need our second chances, they need us not to look at them like, oh, I'm going to label you as a criminal and a drug addict. How can we look at people and see them as equals in a world that has pretty much nailed it into us that, based on who you are in your past, I should keep my distance from you and I shouldn't give you that second chance? How do we interact with people better?
I'm just a firm believer that like you got to give people second chance. But here's the deal: which is why I say you don't lie. Like lying is the biggest thing. If I catch someone even telling me the stupidest small lie, I'm never ever gonna trust them. So like, you got to just be open and upfront with people. Like when I'm going to talking to cops, like I'm literally, like I said, how I got my pockets out there. So I literally go up to the cops. I keep flyers for my pockets out there. I literally walk up, hand them a flyer to my podcast, give them some dap, be like, hey, how long you been in law enforcement? I give them like a little 20-second crash course on my story. And here's why I do it like that. The worst thing that could possibly happen is the cop, for one, doesn't give a shit, doesn't listen to my podcast, hates the interaction, but no matter what, is 20 seconds of my life. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen. Or it could also be like, holy shit, this is a cop, and he can start promote my podcast to do this, that he knows that he arrested and tell people my examples. So I've had cops tell me that. Now when I see him at the gym, they're like, I was just telling this inmate about your story the other day when I literally locked him up. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, just be upfront with people. Like people love an underdog story. You know what I'm saying? Like, and here's another thing. A lot of people are smart, especially if they're business owners. You're trying to get a job from them. You can pretty much judge a book by that cover. So as long as you're honest with them and you're straight up about it, like they can pretty much see what's going on. They know if you're on drugs or not. And most people, they want an underdog story. People want to root for the underdog. You're going to get that chance. If not, it wasn't meant for you, and the next person's going to give you that chance as long as you're honest.
Tell me about something that's been the most rewarding experience you've had so far after being out doing this venture. Let's talk about doing this venture, right? Changing lives, doing all this. What has been something that you have just been blown away at?
I was raised by a single mom. I'm a mama's boy, bro. So every day it's not even that when I get emails from inmates and stuff, it's when I get an email from an inmate's mom. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that dude. I remember Cheryl that she's begged me to write her son. And it's like, my mom was so helpless and so hopeless for so many years. You know what I'm saying? And never, ever thought I was going to figure this out, and like, there's nothing better in the world than like knowing that like the mom is thinking that her son has a chance out she never thought her son had. You know what I'm saying? Because like there were so many times my mom was the only one that believed in me still. And she probably didn't even believe me, but she at least made me think that she believed in me. You know what I'm saying? Now, like these moms, like they have an example, so they've seen it done before. Because like this, Cheryl Tipton's name, like she's like probably has her holding her breath for her son to get out of prison. God knows what's going to happen to him. Who knows? Because he was already probably a drug addict before he went in. Now he's got the prison stuff, and who knows what's going to happen to him when he gets out. But now she can like literally see an example of a dude that did the worst prison time ever and literally got out and became a multimillionaire. With zero education. Like it just like shows like. Hopes for moms is my biggest thing. I'm a mama's boy. I love moms. So like the greatest thing in my life to this day is when I like actually give moms, because I feel like it gives them a second life, they can have their son back.
All right. I got one more question for you. But before we do that, let's plug everything you got going on. Where can people listen to your podcast? Where can people support you? How can they wind up interacting with you? Plug all that.
Yeah, thank you. So my website, petermeyerhoff.com, my podcast and YouTube channel is on all platforms. It's called Roll Call with Chappy. Reviews are huge. Please leave me a review. My book is coming out April 15th. It's called Against All Odds. I got a link to on my Instagram. Instagram is Peter_Meyerhoff, Meyerhoff. And like I said, if you guys are struggling, I'm here and I'm doing it myself. If you shoot me a DM, you will literally get a response back from me 100%. That's literally what I do every day.
It's true. You responded to me and you gave me your time, and I'm appreciative of that. Here's my question. I think this is the most important thing in my view. You have a relationship with God, correct?
Yep.
You're going to get people, they don't know how to bridge that gap. How did you come to Christ? People?
You don't even get to say, I got goosebumps already when you get that, because like, that's the last part of my story too. So like, I got sober and I was in AA, right? And my sponsor, everybody knows, like, you got to find a higher power. You got to have God, right? I'm like, I watched my cousin get murdered when I was in maximum security. I watched it on the news, right? She got ran over by a drunk driver, training for the Olympics, was a Duke All-American, like didn't even kiss a boy through high school, like the greatest human being you could ever fucking possibly meet. And then I literally watched her get ran over from a drunk driver. I'm in maximum security. I can't even make a phone call for 3 days, right? So like, I literally just, and thank God I wasn't on the yard, because I probably would have killed somebody, you know? And thinking back now, that's my gratitude for that I was in maximum security. But back then I was bitter that I couldn't make a phone call. So then I'm like, right then, I'm like, you can't tell me. And then, you know, it's crazy. That exact day, I remember I watched a rapist get stabbed in my same tier right there, going to the showers, bangs a piece in this dude, I don't even know how many times. And the dude walked away and lived. And I remember thinking that day, like, there's no chance in the fucking world God is real if he just let that rapist live. My cousin's dead today. So there's not a chance. And when I went to AA, I told my sponsor this, like, and we still talk about this. I'm the only person that I was just like, I don't give a shit what you say. We're not talking God. Like, don't even try to fucking say that G word. That's literally what I would say. So he's like, you need a higher power. I'm like, okay, I'm my higher power. I got through 12 years in prison. I'm my own higher power. Because when I tell myself I can do something, I can do it, you know? And then I'm having lunch with Sheriff Lamb one day, and so much stuff starts clicking, you know? And like, and then he tells me about this prison curriculum. So I do prison curriculum now that I like teach inmates how to be successful when they get out of prison. And it all clicks over to me and comes through. And then one night I'm just like, I'm going to pray. And 10:30 at night, I like look over, fiance sleeping. I was just like, someone told me to get down on my knees and pray. And I prayed. I remember I was crying. I woke up the next morning and I told her, I was like, I got to tell you something. I was like, I prayed last night. She's like, what do you mean you prayed? I was like, God, I don't know. I think I believe in God again. And she's like, what do you mean? How did this happen? And I started telling her. And then it's like, now, like, what's crazy is now when I go, because I don't do meetings a lot, I go back just like trying to inspire and help people. If I'm getting a young dude sober, there's no better place to go. Let's go. They'll take you to a meeting, you know? And now when I go there, that was my biggest thing when I went to those meetings, is like, I was prejudging, like, they're going to put God down my throat and all that bullshit. Now it's just like, on top of having the worst story on the other end, now I can go there and be like, don't even try and tell me don't use that God word. Cause I'm like, okay, cool. We won't use the God word. I'm going to still show you how to get sober, you know? Cause like, you can't tell me that you believe in God less than I would, because like, I'm the only dude that was in AA that like, my sponsor was not even allowed to say the G word to me. Cause I would lose, like, I'd cut you off. We're not even having that conversation yet. And he knew it happened organically. You know what I'm saying? He knew I was going to find God one day. And then I found him. And now it's just like, bro, I can show anybody that God's real. And I can show anybody that no matter how you are going to find God when the time is right. You know what I'm saying? As long as you don't give up on your mission that you're on. And like, the fact that I've saved, God saved my life, and I found God, and you know what? And I didn't even believe in God when I got saved. You know, it took me another year almost to believe in God. But when it happens, it makes your entire life make sense. And the second I found God again, I realized why I did 12 years in prison, why I did such a bad prison sentence, and then even why I became so successful so fast when I got out of prison. And then the fourth thing is, why do you think I walked away from a $350,000 a year job? Because God wanted me to leave so I can go help people and use my story as a tool for people.
Gives you more. You trusted him and he gave you more. Yeah, 100%. That is one of the most powerful things in the world. And I'll ask one more follow-up question. How do you deal with the responsibility of people who slide into your DMs? Because that's been the most rewarding thing for me, is when I get people who wind up DMing me and say, hey, listen, I'm trying to build up my relationship with God. I don't know how to do this. And then you're like, whoa. You know, I'll teach people sales skills. I'll teach people, you know, martial arts skills. I'll teach you, you know, how to podcast, all this. I'll talk about, but now I've got the responsibility of trying to help somebody bridge a relationship with God. And it's like, I don't want to fuck that up. So when that started happening to me, I'm like, this is probably the most important thing I will ever do. And it was the most humbling. When people started coming to you, how was your mindset of, all right, I found him. Now others are asking me to lead them to him. How did you handle that?
You know, I haven't been asked that question too many times, and I tell people a lot of times, like, I'm like, it's just tough for me, but like, you'll just know when the time is right for you, you know, like it's like, dude, like my thing with my two instances, like when I was laying in the hospital bed, it's like, it literally happened over like a second, you know? And I went from, like I said, mad that I survived to like, fuck, holy shit, this is God and he's telling me I can do this. So like, then my mindset switches and it's like, but it's so new to me. Like when I'm interviewing guests on my show, like, I mean, like, shout out to Lindsey Graham, the Patriot Barbie. When she was on my show, I'm asking her because like I'm still so new to the God stuff, and she's like, I'm talking to God, and I'm like, all right, break it down for me, because there's a lot of my viewers that are in the same exact boat as me. They have no idea who this God dude is, and if they even Israel, a lot of them don't like it, right? So I'm like, okay, when you say you're talking to God, how do you talk to God? And she's like, what do you mean? I ask him. I'm like, ask him like what? So like you just have a conversation. Do you say it out loud like to the air? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, no way. And then I'm asking her like, how do you find him? And she's like, she gave me a great example. And then like once I was like cognizant of this, it's crazy how often it happens. And she's like, I look at it like this: like if I'm supposed to go run some errands to go to the grocery store, and I don't want to go to the grocery store, but then something will come to my head like, oh, you should go to the grocery store to grab this. She's like, that's God telling me I need to go do that. So she's like, I always notice like anything that if I'm doing something and it's something that I don't want to do, but it pops in my head, she goes, that's probably God telling me that I should go do that. So like, it's crazy how often it'll happen. Like, and then now it's like, I let God run my life so much. Like, I swear to you, I've been driving on the road and like something will click over me, and I'll just like skirt across the road. I'm like, I'm not playing with that's God probably, you know what I'm saying? And then I'll get up there and have a conversation. I was like, holy fuck, I needed to have this conversation today. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you just go with the flow, man. And everything, like I said, here's another thing I believe is this whole interview went down the exact same way it was supposed to. And no matter what, this interview wasn't going to be any different. No matter what, we were going to put this interview off 3 or 4 different times. And this was like, we could have done this yesterday and we would have had the same exact verbiage in the entire interview.
100%. Well, one of the best examples I ever saw was in the movie Contact, where Matthew McConaughey asks I can't remember her name, but whoever she played, Jodie Foster. She doesn't believe in God, and she goes, how can you prove God exists? And he goes, do you love your father? She goes, yes. He goes, prove it. And she's just like, damn, you can't prove that, right? So yeah, that's fantastic.
One more last thing, if I can, I want to give a shout out, and this could be for you too. Like a little, I believed in God then. I was 99.9% believing in God. And then I don't know if you saw my show, but I had JC. Have you seen JC Wrong to Strong?
I didn't see that one. No.
You'll never ever hear of a dude with a worse story. He was raped by cartel members when he was like 5 to 9 years old in Mexico, like killing dudes for the cartel at 11 years old, spent 10 years in Mexican prison, stabbed in Mexican prisons, the crazy stuff, whole face tatted, and then found God like, I think about a year and a half ago. And he literally goes to church with the top Aryan Brotherhood member from the state of Arizona that literally found when he got out after killed an African-American dude in the chow hall, and picked up 20 years, came down for a burglary charge for that. And he did, I think, 25 years straight. And these dudes go to church together. And there will never not be a greater guest that you could have on your show. And like seeing his transformation took away the 0.01% that I still doubted. Like maybe God isn't real. You'll never see a bigger transformation. The dude walks around and doesn't go anywhere without his Bible. Shows up to do his podcast with the pastor from the church, like doesn't go anywhere with them. And like he pulls up in his thing and he said, I used to carry my gun everywhere, now I carry my Bible everywhere. And he's been the one that was telling me, he's like, just wait till you find God, wait till you find God. And he is like, seeing what God has done in his life is like, you can't deny it after you see that. You know, those are
the people that I want to hang out with. I mean, you know, I got my church, and I want people who prove the power of God, who's able to just completely flip the script when nothing else can. So that to me is phenomenal.
Do you know follow Emily Hayden, who's on my show?
I can't say that I do. I don't know.
Okay, she's a really big first one female, but I had her, and she has like 1.7 million downloads on her podcast. It's really big. And I connected them two, and she called me right after. She's like, oh my God, thank you. She's like, that was the greatest interview I've ever given. She's like I needed to talk to that guy. And like, she's like the biggest fan of his ever. And it's like, once you can see what God can do with a guy like that, nobody will ever doubt that God's real.
Oh, that's beyond accurate. That is beyond accurate. 100%. It's petermeyerhoff.com. Ask AKA Chappy. The podcast again is Roll Call with Chappy.
Yes, sir.
It's fantastic. Dude, we're going to have to do this again. I cannot thank you enough for your time. Guys,
Absolutely.
Follow him. Listen to the podcast, support. And again, go to becomewar.com. Much more coming to this. And, man, thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, bro.